So now you get to hear from two of the leads on this project, my friends Palliser and Sarah-Lisa Kasudluak. The first time I asked Sarah-Lisa to speak at something in Vancouver about 5 years ago, she says, "Why do you want me to do that?" And she was terrified. And now she knows exactly what she's doing. And Tommy has been a dear, dear friend for a long time through this project, for myself, for Aphrodite, and many others. And what they're going to talk to you about is how this project moved forward, but how research fit into it, how knowledge fit into it, and how that partnership really went forward. So Tommy and Sarah-Lisa, all yours.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that, Chris. Thank you very much for that, Aphrodite. Sibulipamna kumiham tungil chindimang paknay tuwin undamani. Hi Huruyuwin Nick. Katumari Hotinik. Pinchti Hotinik. Nunal Tinlu. Just like to thank everyone that has organized this great event. It's a really groundbreaking event for our community. I'd like to thank our board members, our staff, and our community members for believing in us. So I'd just like to introduce you to ourselves. My name is Tommy Palliser. I'm the president of the Landholding Corporation, also alumni of Concordia of 2003. Got my bachelor's degree here. Great memories I have of Concordia. I was coming full circle is pretty interesting, pretty fun, after 20 years. Like to also introduce Sarah.
I'm Sarah-Lisa Kasudluak. I'm the vice president for Landholding Corporation of Pituvik, and I was former president before he won.
Kind of playing musical chairs, I guess, with our roles here. Yeah, no, it's been great. We have gained a lot of experience, putting this project together after 20 years. Just great to have partners like Chris that we first met back in 2006, I believe, in Toronto. Just great experience that we've gained, putting this project together in terms of getting the community on board, learning what's feasible, what's not. So it's a lot of experience that we've gained over the years, and I'm very happy to present this project to you. Just like to share a little story before I really get into this. I remember, graduating from John Abbott College, and then spending so many years in the South. And having lunch with my aunt and with her with her friends, they were elderly, and we're sitting around on the floor, having our frozen caribou, our fish, our usual traditional foods. And there was a question that came up, by one of the elders that asked me, "Okay, you graduated from college, good. You spent a few years there in the South, that's good. And you said you're going to school again in the South?" I said, yeah, I have a few more years to go. Really? Geez, Tommy, you can't learn. Thought I wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. So that was just a funny anecdote that I'd like to share on that. So just like to give a little bit of history of our community of Inukjuak. We've gone through a lot in terms of relocation to the high Arctic. Our community actually helped assert sovereignty in the north. I'll talk just a little bit about that. The dog slaughters, the residential schools, challenge of the past and present, renewable energy development, which is our hopeful future outlook, for our community. So, as you all know, there's a documentary that was made by Robert Flaherty back in the 1920s, and was the first documentary in the world that really depicted traditional Inuit living, in the north. How Inuit live, and survived. And then, over those years, soon after, there was a federal officer that spoke with the Hudson Bay manager. And how I got to know that was I got to meet a principal that used to be a principal in Inukjuak back in 1968-69. And he used to be very close friends with the Hudson Bay manager. And they used to write, daily diaries, the Hudson Bay managers, back in the day. And it was in the 1960s that, he had his hands on a very thick book that was, pretty much the diaries of the, Hudson Bay managers of years past. And was a section that he wrote that he found very interesting, where the federal officers came to the Hudson Bay manager and asked, which Inuit should they select, to be relocated. And it was because of the video itself, the Nanook of the North, that, the government had an idea to assert Canadian sovereignty using the Inuit of our community to assert Canadian sovereignty in the North. And then, the Hudson Bay manager, selected a few Inuit that were traders with the French, with the Réveillon Frères. And was these, people that, our friends' families that were selected to be, relocated to the high Arctic. And, there was promises of plentiful wildlife and return home, after 2 years or so. But as we all know, those were empty promises. So they went ahead and with that, relocation to the high Arctic in the 1950s and 60s during the Cold War. They had to learn to hunt in the dark. I was told of stories where it got really windy, so they had to bring their tents down to cover themselves so the tents wouldn't be blown away. So there was some really, challenging times for our people in our community, and they were also, traumatized. They were actually returned in the 1980s. I remember I was a translator for 3 of the students that came. They were very quiet. They were very reserved. And, I soon got to learn that they were, pretty much traumatized as a family, when they returned and went through that ordeal. Also, RCMP was hired, in the 1950s and 60s to, slaughter our dogs, our sled dogs, which severed our hunters from their traditions and, forced, the Inuit to settle in the communities. So it was challenging times. There was also residential schools that were created in the 1960s and 70s where children, had to go to the schools and forbidden to speak their language. So it was just to give you an idea of what challenges, we had and we're still trying to overcome, within our community, the trauma of, relocation and culture shattered, attempts to be assimilated, leading to social issues and community challenges. And this is part of the reason why, we wanted to develop our community to, pretty much improve, the quality of life and to allow for time and space for our people to heal and, to develop our community. The challenges that we have, among some community members, alcoholism, drug abuse, among some of the members, high school dropout rates, housing crisis, high unemployment. So that's kind of like the base of why we want to, develop educational programs, healing programs, infrastructure development, job creation. So, just to give you an idea of, what's our other purposes besides, global warming. And, the fact that we have climate change now, as we all know, with all the forest fires, that's evident across the world, not only in Canada, but abroad, in Australia and whatnot. We're hearing about, forest fires in Alberta now already. It's also evident in the north where there's late freezing, early thawing. So there's extreme weather dangers, that is evident now. Just this past November, there were 9 hunters and their skidoos that fell through the ice. There's actually still 2 skidoos that are at the bottom of our lakes where we go fishing. So, global warming is a real and present danger in our region. As you can see here, there's pictures of, our hunters trying to bring out the, snowmobiles out of the ice that they fell through. Had some really close calls. So just to give you an idea of, the impacts that we see, that is part of our reality now. And, we got together as a community, to, really see what we can do. And that really pretty much started when Hydro-Quebec expressed their interest to conduct wind studies. And we were like, okay, this is our Category 1 lands. We received a letter in 2004, which initiated interest in our community and ourselves in terms of renewable energy discussion. That's when we started talking about renewable energy. What is it really, and what are our options? And our Pituvik Landholding Corporation back in 2004, we were very new to all of this. We didn't know what renewable energy really was, and what options we had in our community. So just to give you some information, we have landholding corporations all across the 14 communities in northern Quebec, which manage Category 1 lands within and around the community. Mandate to manage lands, create economic development, and support the community. And we also took the decision to lead the studies, the wind power studies and project development, because we knew that we had 100% ownership of our Category 1 lands, and we heard that Hydro-Quebec wanted to develop that. We said, no, this is our land, this is going to be our project. So we conducted the wind studies in 2005. We did a lot of research. We went down here in Montreal to learn more about wind power research, 2005, 2006. With the community needing about 3 megawatts of power in the short term and double the capacity in the long term, we realized that wind power, that just the technology itself in our remote conditions is not feasible to power and to heat our community. So we dared to look at and ask the question, should we look at our river? Pre-feasibility studies began back in 2006, 2007, sponsored by Hydro-Quebec, thankfully. And, just like to say that, Chris has been mentioning as well, that partnership is very important. Partnership is key. We needed, to know who was out there that can support us, that had our best interests in mind. So we began in 2006, as I mentioned, and we conducted those studies by RSW. And soon after, the feasibility studies conducted in 2007, 2008 on 4 locations on 2 different river systems. And the feasibility studies proved feasible to power and to heat our community. And then we went on and started to see who can really help us out. And that's around the time when I met Chris. And I think we couldn't let go of each other. We were shaking our hands and we were like, yeah, we got to work together. So that's when we really started working together. I'm very thankful ever since. Thank you, Chris. And also just to mention that it wasn't easy to get the community on board. We had a lot of issues to resolve, a lot of questions and concerns, because this project we're looking at was directly on our drinking water source. There was a lot of concerns. Even we had concerns. Are we going to really able to drink from this water after we put a major in our minds, anyways, a hydro project on our very own river that we source our drinking water from. So as we all know, change is not easy. Especially major change. So we had to, really flesh out all the community questions, concerns, and issues to make sure that they are all answered, in terms of concerns and issues. We did radio call-in shows. We had Chris come over. We had other advisors and other people, that had other projects that they had conducted in their communities to share their stories, as well. To make sure that it's not just, people that are invested in these projects that are telling us what we want to hear, that we have other people in other communities that are telling us what we need to hear as well. So we had a lot of questions, a lot of concerns, and thankfully, most of them were answered. We did, community presentations, school presentations, and then soon after that, in 2010, we had a 1-week referendum where we had the community vote, and we set a goal of 75% turnout and a 75% approval or more to have that for that project to go ahead. And we almost reached that in terms of voter turnout. We had 71.6 voter turnout, but we had 82% approval of the project. And that's because we made sure that we had all the questions and answers, provided. All the concerns. There was water quality issues, there was fish habitat issues, as you heard, through our video here, and there was 16% that said no. And these were allowed 16%. They caused problems, for us in some instances. They unfortunately personally attacked us sometimes, but we made sure that we didn't take it personal. They were just looking out for the best interests of their community. And, we had to make sure that, it wasn't, that we wanted to make sure there wasn't going to become a, attacking session where we just kind of let them vent out, what they want to, express in terms of concerns and questions and directly to us. And then we made sure that we, work with the right people to make sure that those questions and those concerns were properly answered. And we got the bottom of each and every question and concern. So we also got, after that, we got the green light. The major issues that we had, that we had resolved, helped us, get that green light, by getting that community vote. And we used that to move forward. And then that's when we really started to work with Chris and Lumos Energy and Innavik Corporation, financial consultants, to really help us put together a feasible, bankable plan, business plan, financial model to present to the Quebec government, federal government for funding, and to prove that we can, operate this project. It was one thing to start it, but it's another thing to really operate it and maintain it and manage it. So that's where we, got the right people around, right partners with us to make sure that we had, the proof that we can work together and, work on this project. And soon after, we entered into a power purchase agreement with Hydro-Quebec, with also the Housing Bureau, to make sure that the base power and the heating was going to be powered by our project based on a financial model. So I'd just like to pass it over to Sarah to take on some of this presentation as well. So Sarah.
Thanks. All right. I'll start with giving you an idea how big our community is. Our little big community has a population of 1,800, with the majority of the population being youth. So our community age is pretty young. And okay. And so Innavik, that's our name for our project, means a pouch in which one would keep flint and moss to start a fire. So this would be traveled, kept close, protected, and moved place to place, because we were nomadic and we weren't settled to one certain area. All right. Okay, I'm a little nervous, so don't mind me if I'm like kind of having a hard time to start. So our current situation in Nunavik is off-grid electricity, diesel-fueled thermal plant, dependent on imported fossil fuels. For Inutrak, it's 3 million liters a year. Health and environmental risk are, the spills are their air quality, greenhouse emissions. And none as you mind. Persistent enough. Innavik Hydroelectric Project, run-of-the-river hydroelectric power with a capacity of 7.5 megawatts. The cost of construction is at 125 million. To replace almost 100% of diesel used to produce electricity and heating. A significant positive impact on local economic development. Okay. So, as you can see, that's where the run-of-the-river dam is, and that's our community at the bottom there. And asio kami nalian ito na. Okay. So with this project, we couldn't do any of this alone. We needed partners. We needed people of expertise to come in because we're just a small group of people that are off grid. And with Chris and with Energix, that's when things really started rolling in. That's when everybody started taking us seriously. Because a small group of people that says they want clean energy, it's kind of unheard of, right? And so, so with the project, with the community's concerns and the environmental assessment, they needed. We needed to also make sure to get the fish studies in, water quality, and now there's also doing a study with University of Montreal with the permafrost and a run-of-the-river dam on the flooding area. So it's, I think, the first of its kind to be studied before and then throughout the years. And yeah, I'm a little lost, but not really. I'll hand it over to Tommy.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah.
You're doing very good. All right. So, looking at the income sources, the project of this size, we have 5 sources of income that we're looking at. We're looking at base electricity, just for our lights and electrical equipments that we have to power. There's space heating, there's water heating, and then there's also the land lease as well, and also greenhouse gas credits. So it's these 5 income sources, we're looking at approximately $90 million in 40 years, that we would generate. And, mind you, this is 50%, of the, revenues that we would be generating for our community. So it's a very interesting project. It's a feasible project. And then based on that, we're set to start receiving income on this project next year, March of 2025. We're looking at $4 million next year, and for the next few years, and then it's going to start to decrease afterwards, which is how we structured our income structure based on this project. So back in 2021, just 3 years ago, we started to work on our strategic planning. We really want to make sure that we have a good plan to manage the funds, to develop, human resource policies, to update them, to make sure that we have good, sound human resource policies, structures in place, to manage the increase of our employees. And it's a Deloitte that we're working with on that. So we want to make sure that we also develop a trust fund to make sure that we have a good committee, a good structure to be able to manage all of these funds that are going to be coming in. So there's social, economic, educational, and cultural programs we'll be looking at to contribute. Community organizations that we'd like to support as well in our community, infrastructure development, but also just to use that as seed money, to support, the local, educational and economic and cultural programs, and also consider hiring a program officer to, use the money that we're going to be generating from this hydro project as seed money to capitalize on other funding programs to make sure that we're not just, maximizing, not just maxing out on our hydro project income, but to use that as seed money to get other program funds from the provincial government, from the federal government, for educational development, for cultural development, for economic development. As we all know, there's other funding programs out there that we want to capitalize on and make sure that we don't max out on our income itself, just to use that as seed money, to kind of increase the, the income for our community needs and local organizational needs as well. It's also infrastructure development programs that we're looking at to, look at, building factories, housing factories to help us, resolve our housing crisis, to create employment, to even look at a construction partnership, because it makes a lot more sense to start partnering into a construction company before we start developing all of these projects, so that we generate income, we create employment, and that, when we develop projects, that they're cost efficient, cost effective for us. And done. How Marie?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So our partner Interjex is based in Longueuil. They are a major partner in this project. They've been active in the industry for over 30 years throughout Canada and run of the river hydro, wind, and solar power projects. They've been proven to be positive, have a positive track record for partnerships with several Aboriginal nations, and that's what really gauged our interest, because when you have companies that are used to working with other Aboriginals, gives them a good track record for us to feel comfortable to partner with them and to work with them. They have proven expertise in development, financing, construction, and operations of these renewable energy power production facilities in Quebec and throughout Canada. The partnership principles we have, I don't know if you want to talk about this, Sarah?
Oh.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah, that's where I got lost. He brought me back. Thanks. So partnership principles: respect for Inuit culture and the community of Inukjuak, prospective long-term relationship for the development and operations of Innavik Project, shared value between Pituvik and Interjex in terms of environmental protection, project development, project design making, and generation of returns and benefits, prudent and careful projects and business planning, sustainable development practices within the Innavik Project and for the community of Inukjuak. I don't know if you've ever been to a small community, and for us, there's only mainly government funding that comes in for education, for the clinics. There's not a lot. So for us, we needed something that really put together, that being in a partnership will, how can I say it, escalate our values. Because being in a community, you're not one, you're many. And for us to be in that, we need that partnership, because we need to have people that have the shared interest. So yeah, wait, next slide. Key environmental considerations. Hep Pond will be small, 1.2 kilometers, and shallow, minimal flooding. River will continue to flow downstream like it does now. Water quality, drinking and aquatic animals, fish habitat, caribou and other wildlife, cultural heritage, archaeology survey done by Avadak in 2009, wetlands and plants, including traditional use. So we had to meet with a lot of the local trapping association, and one of the concerns came up was the caribou migration, which was right on the river. And that's where they were also going to put in the bridge to access the other side of the river. And we never had a bridge. So then as it came along, the bridge was there now, and we were trying to make sure that we didn't disturb the migration of the caribou. Little did we know that they will start using the bridge. So that was the funny part of us being concerned, and they just accessed it. Important milestones. The signing of partnership was in October 2018, and the signing of the contract with Hydro-Quebec distribution was spring of 2019, and that same day I was in Vancouver with you guys doing my first ever presentation. Like, you guys didn't realize I came from a very small community and I was lost, you know. He had to send his student was, I forgot. She had to look for me in the so yeah, a little big place like this, I can get lost. Out there, no. And environmental authorization came through summer 2019, mobilization and construction fall 2019 to 2023, commissioning it should be spring 2024. One thing that we didn't expect, and one thing that really changed a lot of the plans that we had originally, was when COVID hit. And that's when a lot of the things that we made sure to work on, that hiring of local people, that got very limited. You had to be vaccinated to be able to join and actually be away from your family to work. So a lot of that made few changes, but it still continued. COVID didn't stop us. And I'll give it to Tommy.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. So as she said, as Sarah said, that we did have some challenges, with COVID, delayed our project, increased the cost of our project as well. But as she said, it didn't stop us. Just like to go over some of the benefits to Landholding Corporation. The benefits, we plan to reinvest in the community for infrastructure development, as I said, social, youth, educational, cultural, economic development programs. And also we have 3 full-time operators, at that facility. And it's great to see that, to see local people actually managing a project of this size. We learned a lot, getting this project started, but we also started learning from these young guys that were managing this project, telling us, how this operates, what this button does, what that button does. It was a lot of learning from us, but it was really cool to see, young guys, kind of taking ownership of this project. They were very proud to see, to see us kind of learn from them. And also they were very proud that they were part of this, large renewable energy project. It was really great to see. As you can see here in this picture, that's the overflow over the weir that we have here. It's just a beautiful picture. And summary and next steps. As you know, it's an innovative project never before seen in the history of Nunavik in terms of reducing dependence on fossil fuels. You know, as I mentioned, we used to use over 3 million liters of fuel every year, you know, and we're going to be cutting that drastically, you know, over the next few years, depending, you know, more on this hydro project here. Development of a local clean energy system developed by the Inuit of Inukjuak, controlled by the Inuit of Inukjuak, fits well with government policies. Renewable energy reduction of our dependence on fossil fuels fits right in with that program that the governments are trying to make everyone fulfill. Electrification, Inuit entrepreneurship and governance, public health, development of skills and job creation. So it's a great all-around project. You know, it's hitting many birds with you know, with one stone. You know, developing you know, renewable energy, creating employment, supporting our community, helping us becoming you know, self-managing, and helping us create the programs that we need, that we desperately need as well. Now our next steps is pretty much to share our story. You know, it's time to share our story now in terms of what we're doing, what we have done, and you know, to support others, you know, in you know, other communities, and also electrification of our vehicles. You know, right now we're, you know, trying to learn more about this, you know, electrification of vehicles. You know, it was never really heard of when we were, you know, using gas-powered vehicles. We never thought of that. You know, we would have electric vehicles in our lifetime. Now that, you know, it's possible with our hydro project, we're really looking, you know, at that in more detail. You know, talking about sharing our stories, we were actually invited by the United Nations to present in Bogota, Colombia, last November, and it was an honor. You know, it was something that we never really expected. You know, we had this email. We thought it was spam. You know, just you know, come to Colombia and, you know, present a project. You know, all five-star hotel, all expense paid. And, you know, we never really thought it was real. You know, we thought it was just spam and kind of just skipping through. Okay, whatever. That's spam. That's you know, probably a scam that they're trying to get to. And then Eric, I think 1 week before that deadline, told us, "Hey guys, have you seen this email? Have you thought about it?" And then I had to kind of pull it back out of our trash email. And we're like, "Wow, it even has a calendar and everything." There was, so we kind of really thought about it and said, "Yeah, why not? I have a passport. I can go check it out." And we actually you know, went there and presented our project. And it was to a lot of you know, a lot of interest, because in Colombia they're realizing, you know, climate change as well. You know, their lakes and rivers are drying up. You know, they have to go further for water. Their infants are dying frequently. These are kind of, you know, indigenous groups outside the major cities. So unfortunately, they're you know, having very dire times right now, with the temperatures reaching 40, 50 degrees Celsius, you know, around their areas. And as I said, that their lakes and rivers are drying up. So the United Nations wants to support their indigenous peoples, realize renewable energy projects for them to be able to get water from the wells, you know, from the water underground, so they can have, you know, renewable energy systems pull up the water for their use. So that's where you know, they're trying to support their people and learning from other indigenous peoples and projects. And I believe they saw the presentation at COP 27. Yeah. So they saw that, and then they realized that these are indigenous peoples like us, and we're very much like them. You know, I remember walking around in Bogota, Colombia, and people were speaking Spanish to me. I swear to God, I was lost, but they were almost sure I was able to understand, because I like Spanish, I guess. You know, I mean, it was there was a girl who says, "Yeah, right." You know, and like I said, I couldn't speak Spanish. It was just how closely related we look. You know, it was funny. I got to learn my Spanish. Also, we're taking a step beyond our hydro project now and to look at electric vehicles. And fortunately, our good friends, Chris and his team at ICE, Indigenous Clean Energy, that they invited us to the Electric Vehicle Expo in Toronto, which was just May 1st and 2nd, just a few weeks ago. And they had a great array of electric vehicles, that we were looking at and researching, especially looking for vehicles that can be operational in cold climate conditions, charging stations, infrastructure research, EV and infrastructure funding programs that we'd like to tap into to offset some of the high costs, because as we all know, they're not cheap. And I remember test driving an F-150 Lightning. I kept turning it on and off because I was waiting for that, that engine noise. And I was like, wow, yeah. And I didn't realize I was kept turning it on and off, and then tried to make sure that, I was, going to press gas when it was on. So it's just so quiet. But it had a lot of power. It was very nice to see, very nice to drive, very beautiful, beautiful vehicle. There was other vehicles that, that we were test driving as well. So that's what we want to do. We want to electrify our local transportation in our community. And there's a animation video I think you have as well that we can watch.
Yeah, let's come up here and check.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
What Tommy and Sarah-Lisa have shown, there's research all the way through this. There are 2 or 3 dozen major pieces of research to make this happen. The research on the land. Right now, there's a research going on between Hydro-Quebec to integrate the diesel system with the hydro system with the SCADA powerhouse. You can change it. Do you have the video?
Is it embedded in the presentation?
Maybe it's embedded.
Is there a link to the video? I don't have it on the folder that was provided.
Okay, no, it's okay.
Do you want to open it? Is it online?
I do have it, but if not, it's okay.
No, it's okay. So we'll just go ahead. Thanks, Daniel. And so there's research, and now, for example, with hydro coming into the diesel SCADA powerhouse and then in the communities, is powering the electricity, but it's replacing all the heat for heating for space and water. But there's harmonization issues, so now we're doing further research. So the research is coming from people in Intergex, from Hatch, from different companies who are doing all that. So you need to understand that there's so much research embedded to make this happen, and different points of research. So the message here is, one, partnership with the communities, but also integrating research all the way through it. This is what we need to do to decarbonize. It's hard work, 16, 20 years of hard work, but you guys are the best. So, Sarah-Lisa and Tom, thank you. Yes. I'm going to see if we have time for questions. So I just want to see if people have questions for Tommy and Sarah.
I have 2 online.
Okay.
So I'll bring up the first one. Do you expect climate change to affect the hydropower plant in the near future? Are there periods when freezing affects the power output?
That's a very good question. As I mentioned that, the climate change is very real. As I was saying that, it's freezing later. Our ice is not as thick as before. Just in November when we expected a foot of ice, was just a few inches, and that's why we had people fall through. We had some very close calls of people, swim out of, these holes that their skidoos fell in through. And also we're getting freezing rain in February now. It's incredible. When it should be -40, -50, which is great for us. We're used to that. We go hunting in those conditions. But we're getting freezing rain now in beginning of February, which we just had, and that caused a lot of ice buildup on the power lines. And unfortunately, it snapped a lot of our power lines in those conditions. So we're realizing these challenges, and it's Hydro-Quebec that's looking at what they need to do to make their power lines more durable in these conditions. And in March as well, where it gets to minus 30. Where it's not as windy, we're getting -30 temperatures, but like over 100-kilometer winds. So it's blasting, freezing cold, we're getting really weird weather now these days. And, it's something that Hydro-Quebec is going to have to look at. I mean, the hydro project is something else, but it's the power lines that we're really, realizing challenges with to keep them durable, keep them, I guess, operational throughout the year.
And I'll just add, when we had the freezing rain, right after was a blizzard. So because of the humidity in the air and the winds, it was hard for the lineman to go to work. He had to walk to the power station to go restart the generators, because all the roads were blocked. And we're getting more soft snow. It's more soft snow, more blizzards. And our blizzards, the type of blizzards we used to have are changing.
Yeah. I'd also note, just on the question, we studied the hydrological long-term flow before the project was commissioned. So we had research on this space. So we in fact are seeing, and this is what you're seeing, we're seeing more water come in, not less. Mm-hmm. So we knew there wasn't going to be a drop off in hydrology, but we did 40-year studies on hydrology flow. So and that was very tricky to do in climate change back 15 years ago. Secondly, is that one of the reasons why this project works is that the water flows all through the winter. But what we had to study was what the impact of what they call frazzle ice on the turbines. Because frazzle ice is like shards of ice that can then block the turbines. So that also affected the change in design of the turbine and the intake into the powerhouse. So you have very good questions, but these are among probably maybe 100 things we studied to make sure the project was reliable. There's another question, Nicole?
Yep, there's one more. Do you have grid interconnectivity with other communities to sell or buy the electricity when necessary?
Yeah, no, that's certainly a question that's come up. We do have, that capacity and potential, but it's just not feasible. We have, very high costs to build roads in the first place. And from what I understand, it's about $1 million a kilometer, to construct roads, that are, good enough to use. If we have those kind of roads, we would have to have, power poles, built on these roads as well, and to have people ready, it's already a challenge to service and maintain them within our community. It's just not feasible to power other communities around us.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great presentations. For the freezing and this climate change, are you seeing some gases like methanes and type of gases coming from out in your? Yes.
Yeah. No, the topology here is that while there's some permafrost and sand-lying areas, a lot of this is granite. And so therefore, what you're seeing the release of gas hydrates more in the Western Arctic, where there's more, the geological structure is leading to that, and also in the muskeg areas that are on the mainland. But in this part of Nunavik, it's on granite. So largely there are some places near the river that's on sand and gravel, but there's not the same slumping that you see in terms of that's happening with the freeze-thaw fraction. So not in this community, but definitely in others. And the issue of gas hydrate risk and methane risk in permafrost is a massive climate change feedback loop that's highly dangerous. Yeah, I'd just like to add to that. Yeah.
We actually have University of Quebec in Montreal that has been doing studies around our hydro project to see, what kind of impacts there are not only on mercury, but as you said, methane gas release. So we should be getting a full report and presentation on that in September for your information.
We get you the mic. Who got the mic? Mike? Here. Okay, Brad's going to go take the presentation.
How much are you charging? How much are you selling your power to Hydro-Quebec for?
Yeah, we're charging 55 cents a kilowatt hour to Hydro-Quebec to power our community. And I believe it's the same for our heating as well.
It's a bit less for
It's a bit
heat.
less, okay.
Yeah, but that's the kind of thing that happened too. So the way when you convert diesel to heating, for diesel heating versus power, it's less efficient on the diesel side. So then we had to have a bicameral rate. So we actually have a double meter. Again, research. So the meter comes in, one power line comes in, one goes for power, another goes for space and water heating. There's differential charges on that. And we had to go to an order in council change with the Quebec government to allow for a differential price for heating versus for power. But that's been structured. So that price, though, is cheaper than what Hydro-Quebec was paying for the system now. Not quite. More like about 65 in this community. There are some communities that's much higher. Yeah. But what the interesting part is that we had to have, without the revenue, as Tommy talked about the revenue from heating, if we didn't have the revenue from heating, the project would not be economic. There's more diesel used for heating than there is for power, actually, in the north. And so therefore we had to study that, but we had to then we looked at the meters actually from Greenland, who have these bicameral meters that come from Germany that were not in Canada at the time. So we had to make sure the electrical systems allowed for that. And then we had to negotiate the differential pricing and get an order in council because they couldn't do that in Quebec. They only could charge one power rate. So that had to be negotiated. It makes our brain hurt how many things had to happen. But that's what decarbonization is about. It's not one piece of research. It's all this. To decarbonize, you need all this work to be done.
Yeah, I'm curious, what are the lessons learned around this massive project, and what advice did you share with the indigenous population of Colombia?
Yeah, sure. I mean, they really want to learn pretty much, how we got to where we are. Looking at the options, looking at the whether we looked at hydro, wind, or solar. They want to see what we have done and how we have done it. So we explained to them, that we had to find good partners like Chris that understand, the environment and the landscape in terms of renewable energy, looking at their resources, that they have available, whether it's sun, wind, or water, seeing what fits best for their community. So we told them that, it's very important to find these partners and to look at their resources, what they would like to, capitalize on, whether it's hydro power, if they have a good river system, if it's a strong enough flow, enough water capacity, or if it's wind, if they have, good quality wind conditions, or if it's sun. I think there in Colombia, they have a lot more sun. So they're seeing a lot more solar panels being developed around there. And then also just looking at their people as well, to make sure that they're ready to take that next step and to work with the local indigenous people, and to make sure that they have a stake in it as well. Not just to have, as Chris said, not just to have impact benefit agreements, but to have actual ownership in the project, so that these projects can be realized. It's great to see indigenous ownership. As we all know, it's part of a larger reconciliation plan. To help these indigenous peoples like our community to get out of poverty, to start getting on our feet again, as Sarah said, and to make sure that they help make decisions on these projects going forward. So all of that, we made sure that we have a good buy-in. We explained to them that you have to have a good buy-in, good stakeholder investment, and that as well, and good partners.
Yeah. Andreas Athenidis, quick question.
I'll just add to his question. And for our neighboring communities were very reluctant to make remarks at first. They were really watching us, how we're doing things, if it's a good thing or a bad thing, because each community always sees there's a good side and a bad side. But now a lot of them are curious to learn what and how we have done it. But once they're there, they'll realize it's a process, a step-by-step process in growing with your community. Because over 100 years ago, we were nomadic. We weren't in houses. We moved place to place following the animals. And I know it's decarbonization, but a lot of it for us is decolonization. And because naturally we don't waste, and just to switch it to modern times, it's very rewarding. And so our neighbors are curious and want to learn.
Last question.
Thanks. Very nice presentation. I'm glad to see the integrated thermal and electrical planning. That's very important in many of the voltage projects that we're starting. And have you thought about energy storage, thermal and electrical, for resilience reasons in case there is power outage, and also energy efficiency, improving the energy efficiency of the houses?
Yeah, sure. Just to start off with energy efficiency, we had a symposium last year, our first symposium of its kind in our region, and it was held in our community. And, we partnered with other people to put this symposium together. And one of the, presentations was actually looking how we can improve, power usage efficiency of the houses to, conduct studies on our present houses now to see if they're, looking at the pressure, being blasted in terms of air and seeing where, the cracks are and whatnot. So there's tests that are being done to see, how we can make our houses more efficient in terms of heating. And, we're also looking at ways to decrease our power usage consumption to make sure that, the hydro project, that if we're going to be adding power demand, that we make sure that we, first of all, be as efficient as possible in terms of our power usage now, so we can maximize our power development and usage, in the long term. And for your other question for power storage, we did look at, wind turbines as a potential, but since our community is remote, it takes, a ship to bring in all of the fuel that we have now. But we're also looking at the potential risks of batteries. We realized that we would have to take the size of a hockey arena to have battery storage, for the community of our size. So we thought that, having, battery acid, which is, very chemical and very dangerous to handle and to store, we said we don't really want to look at that in terms of our providing our community needs. And then that's how, we looked at our river afterwards.
Yeah, I just note there's high reliability on the storage capacity, which is in hydro. So they have the best battery in the world, which is hydro that flows all the time. And so there's no risk there. There were detailed studies on hydrological flow all year round for generations. So we're good. What I note that is that what Tommy and Sarah-Lisa have talked about is in their committee. There are several other dozen committees doing diesel reduction. But I would note that if the question came up to me this morning, what I talked about in Indigenous communities, a lot of the projects being done is to supply the grid. It's supplying Montreal and Toronto and Ottawa. So there are the off-grid communities and the on-grid communities as well. And I would say that we're going to break now, and thanks Sarah-Lisa and Tommy, but I would note that the last piece on the electrification of transport, I like those of you who are working in that space to connect with the two of them, because they have some pretty ambitious plans for that. But also can apply to places like Colombia and others that I've seen, because I was there 2 weeks ago in Colombia. So the next stage of this is another stage of growth, replacing as much as the transport in Inukjuak with electrified transport they have the hydro capacity for it, including electrification of transport for the hunting cabins that are further afield. So it's basically, Inukjuak is going from 100% diesel fossil fuel generated, and it's going to get close to zero. It will reduce its greenhouse gases per capita by more than any other community in Canada. That is a remarkable thing. So
we don't hear the plant anymore.
Yeah, no. And the diesel doesn't go on. Yeah. People
just like to mention that we do have a plan internally to be net zero by 2030. country of Canada, federal government wants to be net zero by 2035. We see that there's an urgency looking at our hunters, falling through the ice. Last November, we see the urgency, really firsthand. So that's why we want to be net zero by 2030, sooner than the federal government itself. So just like to thank you all on that, and just like to say I know one word in Spanish. Muchas gracias.